Hello and welcome back to another episode of Minding My Own Mind. This is Michelle, and today I just finished another podcast interview with someone else, and what I wanted to talk about today was something that crossed my mind and during this podcast with the other woman, and it was so clear once I heard it. Sometimes you hear the same things over and over again, but one time someone words something differently and then it's like your mind just explodes of how did I not see it that way before. And the thing I want to talk about today is fear, and I've talked about fear before, but what I want to extend to that today is talking about fear of responsibility and how I now believe that this might be one of our biggest fears of them all. And fear of responsibility. First of all, let me define responsibility in this context. In taking responsibility is going to relate to the actions that you need to take. Accountability is related to the result. So responsibility is related to the task. So for example, me needing to film something or me needing to, I am responsible for doing my laundry. I'm responsible for doing things. I am held accountable for if I show up late. I am held accountable for doing my work. So both of those are huge fears. But what people have the biggest fear of, I think, is the responsibility. And it relates to all of our other fears. So at first I want to go over that. Then we'll talk about a few ways that you can work on this in your own life. So first, talking about the fear of responsibility. How about we relate it to the fear of movement, right? So people have the fear of doing things. What will happen if I do this thing? What will happen if I do this thing? So in that case, they're looking at the fear of accountability. And they're scared to take action, which is their responsibility to take action, to make new changes, to get new results. You need to make changes, do new actions. They're scared of doing things because something else might happen. But when we look at our personal development, right, and our careers and our mindsets and whatever it may be, we hear a lot about the fear of success, right? So some people are scared of succeeding. Why is that? Well, if you take this concept of the fear of responsibility, you can see that fear of success would be the fear of taking action, the fear of putting in the work, the fear of having to be held accountable if something goes wrong, the fear of leaving others behind, because when we are moving towards our dreams and making space for new things that we want to come in, we have to let some things go. And we are responsible for letting those things go. Our fear is in the actions that we must do. Our fear is that we don't want to be disciplined, that we have to choose to be disciplined. We have to actively be disciplined. So our fear is that, not that we won't do it, but our fear is almost that we have to do it. Because once you're responsible and you take on responsibility for doing something, now you're holding yourself accountable to do that thing, right? What about the fear of setting boundaries? In order to get to that life we want and have the people and relationships that we want, we have to set boundaries. I talk a lot about boundaries. That's so you can design the reality around you and design the way that the relationships around you are happening. If we think about our fear of responsibility in that term, we have to be responsible to set the boundaries. We have to be responsible. We are responsible for setting those boundaries. Because when we aren't, what we try to do is to blame outside sources. Because we are scared of taking the responsibility and holding ourselves accountable. But the reality is you can only hold yourself accountable for the changes. You're also responsible for what you allow. As I've said it before, it's important to let people know your boundaries, and it's also important to be responsible to tell and pay attention to what you allow. So now you have the action of needing to not allow certain things. It's so easy. Everything is a choice. You either do it or you don't, right? and staying the same is also a choice. So when you are allowing certain things in your life, you're choosing to allow those things. You're not restricting or stopping those things from coming into your life. So that means you're responsible for who you allow, who you leave behind, setting your boundaries. You're responsible for the decisions to be made to get you where you want to be. If you are trying to lose weight, success in this case is losing weight for what the person whose goal is to lose weight. And they don't want to take responsibility for their consistency. They don't want to take responsibility for their self-discipline. They don't want to take responsibility for them needing to eat correctly. They don't want to take responsibility for the lifestyle change. Why? Because things aren't always easy. And when we don't take responsibility for them, we can blame it on everything else. At least that's what we tell ourselves, right? We tell ourselves that we can go blame it on everyone else. Anyone who knows better that you're blaming everyone else, but the reality is it's you. Everything in your life is a result of you. So taking responsibility, we fear taking responsibility because now we actually have to be responsible. We have to actually take the actions that we are needing to hold ourselves accountable for. But what about the fear of failure? Let's go into fear of failure. Fear of failure. First, let me define failure in this case. Failure is not the opposite of success. There is success, then there is an outcome that was not success that we can learn from. And then failure is either inaction due to fear, not inaction due to enjoying where you're at. Inaction due to fear, or an outcome that wasn't success that you don't learn from, that you just end it there. That's failure. So what does that mean? That means that what do we fear? We fear our actions that lead to us not getting the result that we want. Even more than that, we fear the responsibility of learning the lesson. We fear that we will have to go actually learn this lesson. Why? Because that takes work. We have the fear of being responsible for learning this lesson because that takes work. I would much rather just say, I failed, because that's easier. It's easier for me to blame other people. But the reality is, once again, you can't blame other people. You are responsible for everything that is happening in your life right now. You would be responsible in the case of failure or not success for picking yourself up. We want other people to pick us up, but we have to agree to even be picked up. We have to be responsible for all of that. And we have to be responsible sometimes, many times, to admit that we were wrong. And that action is not something that most people want to be responsible for. Most people don't want to be responsible for admitting that they were wrong. And they also don't want to be responsible for having to learn the lesson and admit that they were wrong and then possibly try again. Yes, none of this is easy. I'm not saying that it's easy. What I'm saying is one of our greatest fears is fear of responsibility. So we have to do something about it in order to create changes for our future, in order to live a life now that we really love. So after talking about all this, and I have all this epiphany, well, what's the point, Michelle? You just going to talk about it? No, I'm going to tell you how to deal with it. So first thing, can you guess what it's going to be? First thing we're going to do is take control of our lives. How? Taking and accepting responsibility. We are taking back control by accepting responsibility. We say that I am responsible for my life. I am responsible for where I am, where I've been, and where I'm going. Of course, hey, not all of us were dealt the same hand in the beginning, but we choose how we go out. And sometimes there are very, very crappy circumstances. And I am not blaming anyone for the circumstances. But it is up to you to do something about it. It is up to you what you will do with the hand that you were dealt. And yes, it's harder for some of us. This is a reality. It's harder for some people. And it's not hard to admit that for some people it's harder than others. It is harder. But we all still get to choose if we're going to do something about it. So, what are we going to do? First thing we're going to do, take back our control. We're going to admit that we have control of our lives and that we take responsibility for where we've been that has brought us to where we are now and where we're going to go. We take responsibility for all parts of us in time, past, present, and future. Principally, where we are now. Then we're going to deal with the past. Second thing, heal. You have to go back and heal. You have to go back and learn to forgive yourself, forgive whoever you need to forgive. You need to go work on healing. Healing can be done in so many forms. This is not an episode on healing, but a few tips. You can go to therapy, you can do journaling, you can do your own healing work, you can get a coach, whatever it may be, whatever it takes, heal. I personally did hypnotherapy, lots of journaling, lots of self-reflection, meditation, whatever it took, heal. Why? Because it's almost as if you're holding on to something in one hand for your entire life that you don't even remember holding on to. Your subconscious is so strong. So you're not even consciously thinking about these things. And that's why healing is so important, because your subconscious could literally just be like holding on to an anchor at the back of the boat. And you just keep trying to go, and that anchor is just there. But when you go heal and deal with these things, it's not easy. Imagine it as if you're trying to break the chain for this anchor with your hands or something. It's not easy. And then you go get some scissors and you get all these different types of things that you can use to cut it. And then eventually you finally can cut it. And when you do, you are free to go to where you want to go. You see an entire world. There's an entire ocean of opportunities out there. And now you're actually able to access them because you took the time to heal. So now as you're sailing through the world into this endless sea of opportunities, now your boat is free. What are we going to do now? We're going to take responsibility for our future. We're going to take responsibility for where our boat is going to go. Why? Because we are in control. We are the captains of our lives. We've now taken the anchor off. We said, this is my boat. I accept responsibility for this boat. I'm on this boat. And I also accept responsibility for where I'm going to take this boat. And no, it's not always going to be easy. And sometimes there's going to be waves. Sometimes there's going to be storms. But I'm still going to steer this boat to where I want to go. So what you're going to do then is build your boat in a way that fits where you're going. So you need to become who you want to be. And how are you going to do that? You're going to build the boat in that way. And what does that mean? Responsibility. So now you are responsible for building your boat. So who do you need to be? What do you need to do now to become who you want to be? Are you just going to delay and just float around for a while? Or are you going to go in the direction of your dream? Go in the direction of where you're trying to get to. Take responsibility for your future self. Take responsibility for each part of your life and allow yourself to have the ultimate life that you've wanted. You can have all of these things. Take responsibility. And I know it's scary, but do it step by step because it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. It's so worth it. Imagine pure happiness. Go align your life with your values. If you want more about that, join my 21-day challenge, talk about values. Go align your life with your values. Go relieve yourself of that anchor. Go heal. Go build your boat in the way that it allows you to get you to where you want to be. Fear is controlling us at all times, and you have to practice getting out of your comfort zone. You have to practice pushing yourself. And yes, there are times where you can just float on the water for a while, because sometimes it's nice. Sometimes the weather's nice. You don't have to be out of your comfort zone all the time. This is not saying you have to live your life consistently on the edge. What I'm saying is don't let fear control you. And especially when you look at it as the fear of responsibility, the number one thing that I think is controlling us, then take responsibility. And once you do that, a lot of the other things will naturally fall into place. Because if I take responsibility for setting my boundaries, well, then I know that I'm the one who has to do it. And so then when I don't do it, I'm the one who I hold accountable for not holding my boundaries. I'm the one who's like, I am the reason that that happened. And I do this with things because I'm choosing what I allow and accepting the control. I'm taking control of my life. You could say, it was because they did this to me. It was because they did this to me. You can't control them, but you can control how much of them you're going to continue to allow in your life. I can't control the people in the city I'm in, but I can choose whether I'm going to stay in the city or not. I can't choose how the other team is going to play today when I go to a match, but I can choose how I hopefully will show up. I can do what I can do to prepare for that moment. And I don't always show up perfectly. Of course not, unfortunately. But of course I'd rather show up perfectly all the time, but it happens. Sometimes you don't show up perfectly. But I take responsibility for my actions because I take responsibility that it was me who did it, so I can go practice to be more prepared for next time. Everyone has their days where there's a storm, but it's okay. So anyways, that's all I got for you today. This took so much effort to record because so many methods were bailing out on me, but I am so happy that I was able to get these thoughts out. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day. This is my first single episode or solo episode for the year. I'm going to be doing a mixture of solo episodes and interviews this year, so really looking forward to that. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Send me any requests for content. You can follow me at I am Michelle White, both on YouTube and on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Please also leave me a like and rating. That would be amazing. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Thanks. Bye.